When was the last time the holidays felt peaceful? Have they ever?
Silent Night? I don't know about that.
Yeah, well, what if they actually could? And what if you ended the year feeling rested instead of frazzled? That's exactly what we're talking about today. Welcome to Focus on This, the most productive podcast on the internet. I'm Marissa Hyatt.
And I'm Joel Miller.
This is where we remind you of something you already know. It's not about getting more things done. It's about getting the right things done.
Both at work and in life. And today we're talking about how, practically speaking, how to do less over the holidays.
And all God's people said, Amen.
Amen.
I think everybody this time of year is feeling crazy. Here we are, we're in December, which is wild, by the way.
It's 2 months in one, right?
It's like I blinked and we somehow ended up in December, and I can't believe it's the end of this year.
It's not still May. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and it also feels like this month is multiple months wrapped in one. The amount
Yeah.
of things that we have to finish with work, obviously the holidays, but it's not just the holidays. It's all the things that come with the holidays. It's the shopping, it's the cooking, it's the, traveling, the people in town, hosting holiday parties that we have to go to or host ourselves, and all the things that go within that. And it just feels like it never ends, and it all has to be done right now because we're coming up on the biggest deadline of all, which is the end of the year.
Yeah. I mean, how many commitments do we already have? And we're getting ready to add more.
Yeah. So let's all just take a collective deep breath because, oh my gosh. But truly, I like to think of this episode, Joel, as kind of our part two to our
Hmm.
last episode that we did on the holidays. A few weeks ago, we talked about compression, that
Hmm.
feeling that there's more to do in less time. And that's certainly happening right now. And why boundaries and rhythms are really essential this time of year. Now, we talked to our double win coaching clients about what they most wanted to hear us talk about on Focus on This. We often go to them and say, "Hey, what do you guys want us to hear? Or what topic should we cover?" And the answer was like crystal clear, loud, perfectly in pitch, all of it, which was how do we survive and even potentially thrive during the holidays?
Is that even possible? Thriving during the holidays? I mean, I know it's supposed to be a time of joy and cheer, but there's an awful lot of tears involved too, right?
Well, I think there is. I think it is on the table for us. And I think what we're going to talk about today is hopefully going to really encourage all of you that you don't just have to end this month and this year like completely out of steam with your hair crazy, looking like you are just disheveled and are, barely crossing that finish line. I think there's a way to do this that actually is manageable and even potentially invites more peace than at any other time in the year, which is a big promise. We'll see if we can follow through with it.
I don't know. All right. Well, I mean, to get us started, let's just like start with this thought for a second. Not everything we do around the holidays actually has to be done this month, which is automatically kind of a liberating thought.
Well, yeah, that's kind of like mind bending a little bit because I think all of us feel like everything has to be done right now.
Right. But I mean, there are some things that do have to be done. We could call them, your non-negotiables. And it seems to me that the first thing to do is to figure out over these next several weeks, what are your actual non-negotiables? Not everything that you could do, not everything that everyone wants you to do, not everything that even you want to do, but what are the things that are non-negotiable?
Yeah. So, how do we figure this out? Because I think sometimes the trap that we end up in this time of year is everything feels like a non negotiable. It's like, how do you even parse out
Yeah.
what is truly a non negotiable? Because you're saying that, Joel. And I'm like, great. That sounds awesome in theory. And yet, I feel like I could turn this episode off and I go back to all the things I'm trying to do. And I'm like, no, but I have to get that done. No, but I have to get that done. No, that has to be done. And so, how do we actually stop that chaotic thought process long enough to actually realize what is actually a non-negotiable or not?
Well, okay. So I think one of the first things to do, and just like as a coping strategy in general, I think one of the greatest things people can do is just like start with a list.
Mhm.
Write down everything you think you have to do. And just, I mean, this is an exercise. It'll take you 10 minutes, get a cup of coffee, put on your favorite album and just start writing the things that you think you have to do over the next month. And then put some discernment on that list. Scrutinize that list, like ask yourself, does everything on here truly matter right now? And so you're kind of looking for things like, what is, one or two or three things at the most that absolutely have to happen?
Yeah.
Um, like, what are you absolutely committed to finishing? Because here's the reality: you're not going to get it all done, and so you might as well make peace with that on the front end than just be frustrated with yourself that come January 1st, you still have 9 things on this list that you haven't finished.
Right.
It makes more sense to just recognize, well, you are going to get done just 2 or 3 of them. Go ahead and list them and then show some front end discernment and just decide what those things are going to be. And then, use that to help guide you.
Yeah. I think it's important to realize that, technically speaking, all of these things that you're going to write down may actually need to happen and they may really matter.
Yeah. Every one of them probably does matter. Like,
Yeah.
you're not a non-serious person. You know what matters in life and all that kind of stuff. So you're going to feel, and you're probably a very responsible person, which means you're going to feel the pressure to like tack on a lot of stuff on that
Yeah.
list, all of which feel meaningful and important.
But not everything has to matter or get done at the same time.
Or in the same way.
Or in the same way, right? And we're going to give you guys some really practical strategies. I think this episode is going to be really good because my hope is you guys can really walk away with clear strategies that you can go implement today on your.
Yeah.
So, like, you don't have to let this list linger any longer than it needs to. Like, we want you creating this and then filtering this and getting into action into the things that do matter right now, the things that you do want to accomplish, or make time for or prioritize before the end of the year, because there are going to be those things.
Yeah.
So I think you're right. It's asking these questions of what really matters to me right now, realizing that there are going to be limitations involved. And so what is it that I really want to make happen between now and the end of the year? And maybe there's things related to your health or your self-care that you want to prioritize. There's probably a professional goal or two that needs to happen between now and the end of the year. I think that's pretty normal for all of us listening,
Yeah.
is like, we've got stuff we've got to get done before the end of the year, targets we need to hit and so forth. And so great, that needs to be a priority. I need to make sure that I'm making space and making room for that thing, but I also don't need to do all the other things that I just decided in my own mind needed to happen before the end of the year. The truth is there's a lot of that stuff that we can probably push into January or even later into next year, to kind of relieve some of that pressure right now.
Yeah. And that goes for social stuff too. Not every invitation is an obligation.
Yeah.
We don't have to think that way.
Yeah.
We get to choose. So you want to decide, like, for instance, where would my presence be most meaningfully felt? And, to both for my own sake and for others' sake. And then where would it be, like, not necessarily as important? And those are the moments where you're able to say, no, I'm going to take that off my calendar. I'm not going to actually even put that on my calendar.
Well, I love this because I think this kind of leads us into this concept of, like, take off what you can on your list, that isn't critical. So, like,
Mm-hmm.
stop doing the stuff that you don't actually have to do. A couple
Yeah.
of things with this, Joel, it's true with social events. Like, where is your presence really matter? And where is somebody not really going to notice if you don't show up to that party or, that event, that it's not critical for you to be there?
Here's how old I am, by the way. When you said that, my mind instantly went back to when I was, I don't know, 13 or 14 years old, and I was watching Rambo First Blood Part 2.
Yes.
And in Rambo First Blood Part 2, there is a moment where Sylvester Stallone, aka Rambo, is sitting there trying to explain to this woman what expendable means, because he's expendable. That's the kind of the idea. Yeah. What does expendable mean? And he says, it's kind of like if you throw a party and you don't show up, nobody really notices you're not there. And that's pretty sad, really, at the end of the day. But the truth is, you don't have to go to everything.
No.
And it's fine if you don't go to everything.
And we create these obligations for ourselves more often than not. I think
Totally.
the other thing is, more people, at least in my experience, this time of year are more grace giving than any other time of the year. We're all dealing with this. It's like a collective struggle. And so when somebody, says to me, "Hey, I would love to be at that party or that dinner," honestly, I am really struggling to keep up with everything going on this time of year, so I'm gonna need to sit this one out. I'm like, I totally get it. Say no more. I got you. It
Yep.
makes complete sense. Where I think at other times we may not be, it may feel more disappointing, to the person who's hosting or, throwing the event. But at this time of year, I think we all have a lot of grace.
Well, and that's part of the season, right? I mean, this is a season of generosity. Let's be generous
Yeah,
to people and their needs. I think
exactly.
that's doable. I would hope that people would show that to me. So I should be showing that to others.
Yeah. Well, and also ask yourself what on your list that you're trying to accomplish, if you just didn't do, nobody would notice. Sometimes we're our hardest person to please because it's like we create all these expectations for ourselves and all these to dos. And sometimes it's like, what if you just didn't do it?
Give yourself the gift of not doing it.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
So, like in free to focus language, we're kind of talking about elimination. We're talking about eliminate. This is like stop doing the stuff you don't actually have to do.
Yeah. Well, and I think this time of year can be particularly tricky because we believe that there's a right way to do this time of year. Most of us
Hmm.
have some idea in our brain that in order to be successful by the end of the year, we have to go through this next month in a certain way. I mean, most of us are unconscious to that, but if we slow down for, a couple seconds, and I'm going to invite all of you listening, give you a little space to do this. Like, what are your expectations for yourself this time of year? Like, if you think about how could I go through December perfectly, what does that look like? That's usually what's driving most of your decisions this time of year.
Hmm. That's probably true. I mean,
Yeah,
what do I mean? Probably that is true. We're guided by all these unclear assumptions, these unstated assumptions about our ideal behavior. And if we actually spent a moment scrutinizing them, we might change our opinion about how important X, Y, or Z actually was.
right. And the problem is we don't do that. And then we feel like we're failing
Hmm.
and we're kind of just in this rat race. And the truth is, we have the agency. And I say this all the time to our clients, we have the agency to create anything that we want to win at. Like we get the choice. We don't have to create an experience or a playbook or whatever you want to call it that we're going to end up failing at the end of it. We get to
Right.
stop, and this is your invitation right now to stop and ask yourself, how do I actually really want to experience the month of December? And let's go engineer for that. So the first is you want to eliminate all the things that you actually don't have to do.
Yeah.
So every no is actually a yes for something better.
It's just a trade off.
Yeah, for something that matters more for you. And what we want to do is we want to make space for those non-negotiables, for the things that really matter, so that all these other things aren't crowding that out.
Hmm. So basically, there's the office party, and you're able to say, no, I need to rest. I'm going to actually stay home that night.
Yeah.
I mean, here's a loaded one, but family gatherings, there's an expectation maybe about certain dishes that show up on the menu.
Yeah.
But what if you didn't actually make that complicated or not so interesting family recipe if no one really likes it anyway? For instance, are we scrutinizing this?
Ooh,
Are we actually checking?
you
Like,
might
because I can
you
think
might
of green
ruffle
bean
some feathers.
casserole, and I'm like, I don't want that. What if
Yeah.
we just didn't do it?
I don't want that either, honestly. That might get eliminated from the Hyatt family Christmas this year. Yeah, it's like, who wants that? One of the things that we have done, we actually did this for Thanksgiving, and I'm sure we'll do it again for Christmas. Um, we have a text thread for all of the sisters and my mom. We're planning all the dishes and everything. And we usually ask, what's the most important dish to each person? And whatever the dish is that you really care about, usually you're the one who's gonna now be responsible to create that. Because if it matters to you, great, we wanna have that. But I don't wanna cook a whole meal by my own assumptions, thinking that we're just doing this by default because it's a tradition that we've always done, when the truth is half of that food isn't gonna get eaten because nobody in the family likes it.
Right.
And then you're just like, wasting a bunch of food, and you spend all this time and energy and money, preparing it. And it's actually a lot easier if you either just don't do the thing in the first place and you create what you want, or you just ask people also, what
Right.
what of these dishes do we want to let go of this year?
Another example for that would be like this is gift buying season. It's not even
Yeah.
gift giving season. It's more like gift buying season. And it's like you have this long list of people you have to buy for. What if you didn't? What
Mm,
if there were like a more strategic way to be thinking about this? Like you kind of have like a secret Santa thing, or you assign gifts to people. I know we do that in our family where
okay.
like one person is responsible to give gifts to another, and it's kind of like a lottery the way it all gets worked out, and it's super easy. But the end result is like not everybody is on my Christmas list all of a sudden. I
Yes.
just have like one or two people that I'm focusing on, and it takes all the stress out of like picking gifts for people.
Yes. Or what if you just bought the same gift, for each person rather than putting your energy into tailoring all these gifts to each specific person? What if you thought of a meaningful gift that everybody would enjoy and you just rinsed and repeat? I mean, my mom, she does this each year with us girls. We do get individual gifts, but she gives us each one gift that is the same across the board. And it's usually the most meaningful gift. That's the one I remember actually.
Mm-hmm.
The gifts all the other gifts that she's getting just for me, you know, I'm not necessarily remembering those because those are often more practical or things I'd specifically asked for. But that gift where she's put that energy, and the beauty is she's putting that energy in once and then just,
Right.
batching it essentially, which is really wise to do. So this is another kind of hack is rather than trying to buy all these different gifts. Yeah, what if you didn't, first of all? And also, what if you just didn't buy all these individual gifts? What if you bought one gift for each person? I think the other thing is finding meetings or things on your calendar that are needing to be canceled or
Yes.
eliminated. And often this to me, I am the most ruthless about my calendar this time of year because usually that normal recurring meeting that we have or that meeting that I added to the calendar 2 months ago, it now feels less relevant or less urgent or demanding. And so rather than following through with that just because it's on the calendar, I'm gonna push that out. I'm either going
Yep.
to push it out into next year or just say, "You know what? Actually, this is no longer important. This no longer is, something I wanna prioritize, so we're just gonna cancel this altogether."
Well, and how many things are meetings on the front end that really could have been a Slack exchange in
Yeah.
reality? And this is a great moment to just say, that could have been an email.
Yeah.
And most emails shouldn't even be written. So, like there's another way to think about this than just like I have this calendar full of stuff and it looks like a brick wall of appointments. You
Yeah.
can clear some of those out.
Yeah, what if your, goal this December was to have the least amount of things on your calendar than normal, than any other time of year? What if you just were ruthless and you said, like, everything that can go must go, and so I'm not gonna show up to that meeting that I normally show up to once a month because I don't need to. I'm not needing that thing that I normally need. My priorities have shifted this year or this time of year or whatever it may be. How could you accomplish what you need without all of those meetings on your calendar?
Well, it's a clearance sale for meetings. Everything must go, you
Everything
know.
must go. Exactly. I love this, Joel, which is we need to resign our role as chief everything officer. I mean, how many of y'all feel this? I feel this.
Yes.
Gosh.
During this season, in one form or fashion, we take on a lot of extra responsibility. And, like last week, we talked about gratitude and how interdependent we are, but we rarely act like it. We act like everything like falls to us. And we kind of willingly step into taking on more responsibility. And so we adopt this, we put on the hat, the CEO hat, the chief everything officer hat, and we fail to recognize that there's other people on the team. There are other people that can play a part. They want to play a part. We don't actually have to backstop everything.
Yes. Well, and I think that when we think about work, for most of us, even if you're not in a leadership position and you don't have a team or team members reporting to you, you still can delegate. But this is not only something that you should really be doing, but it really is something that you can do. And when we think about work, it feels like, of course, there's delegation opportunities, but it's rare for us when we think about our home lives that there is opportunity for delegation there too. And there is. We're going to talk about some specific ways that you can be delegating at home, even if you're like me and you live alone. It's not just only up to you to be doing every single thing. For instance, just a quick little um, application from my own life. I host book club with my neighbors almost every single month. And it's usually dinner, and then we, talk about the book and the whole thing. And I usually cook. And I have to say, hosting a dinner party by yourself is a lot because it's not just, oh, I have to cook the food, which is what most of us think that looks like. It's, I have to clean the house. I have to go grocery shopping. I
Right.
have to make sure everything is just so that the timing works out with all this stuff. And it's a lot to go into uh, hosting when you are by yourself.
You're creating an experience for these people, and kind of the sum total of that experience falls on you. And there are so many elements to that.
Yes. Well, I had the gift of one of my neighbors. I was running late. It's Mondays are our day that we go into the office. And so I got stuck in really bad traffic on the way home. And therefore I got home later than I thought. And I wasn't going to, be ready for everybody to show up at the time I originally said. And so I texted the group and I said, hey guys, I'm running late. Can y'all, can we bump out 15 or 20 minutes? And one of my neighbors texted me and she said, hey, can I come over and help you?
How cool is that?
Phenomenal. And I was like, "Yes, you can." And I was a little bit embarrassed because, everything wasn't done and just so when she arrived. But oh my gosh, I couldn't have done it without her. And I was able to delegate creating, I was doing a pear galette. And so I delegated that to her. I know she's really good with desserts and all that kind of stuff. So I delegated that to her.
I'm actually just peeved that you didn't invite me because
I
I
know.
love galettes.
I know I'm talking about books and, dessert, buttery, flaky crust, which is two of Joel's very favorite things. But she, lit all the candles in the house for me and, dimmed the lights and turned the music on and all that stuff that, normally I would have said, I don't have anybody to delegate to at home. But in that context, and luckily it was by her offering
Right.
that it allowed me to get a lot more done. And this is the same thing for you guys too. Joel, let's talk about a couple applications that people can think about this time of year delegating specifically, at home first, and then we'll get into the work stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you think about like what goes into creating a holiday experience, you've got like food is a part of that. What if you just didn't do it all yourself? Like there are some very wonderful prepared food options for folks. Truthfully, I know you're an amazing baker, so I wouldn't suggest this for us because I would like the benefit of having your
Joel's like,
sourdough.
this applies to everybody else except you.
Yes, but like if you're not an amazing baker, don't do it. Like
Yeah.
have somebody else do the baking, and there are probably bakeries in your town that are phenomenal.
Yes.
There's one that just opened up in ours called Perrin that, I mean, honestly, if I could eat there every day, I'd probably weigh 300 pounds and I'd be really happy about it almost.
Right.
Because the food is so good there.
Yeah.
And there's no reason why you have to cook every dish or prepare every meal. You can ask others to step in and do it, or you can hire other people to do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. You can definitely outsource some of that, which I think um, for a lot of us feels kind of taboo, but it doesn't have to mean that you're giving it all away. You can still, again, do those things, those dishes that really matter to you or that you feel like you've really mastered. But the ones that you don't, like the mashed potatoes, is anybody really going to care if you made those versus the bakery or the great place down the street that is offering that? People just want really good mashed potatoes at the end of the day. That would be something easy. Or if you're not a baker, like get some pies at a really delicious bakery. Again, most people aren't going to be the wiser. You don't even have to tell anybody. Um,
Right.
so that's a huge, huge help. I think another one that can often feel like a huge task, especially for us women, is gift wrapping. You're usually gift wrapping for your spouse, for all your kids, for your parents, in-laws, whoever you've got. And it can feel really overwhelming to do that. And what if you just delegated this or even change the way you think about it? I know Megan said in our sister text the other day, one of my sisters shared a link to a great wrapping paper company, and Megan was like, "Oh my gosh, this is beautiful. However, I swore off wrapping gifts a couple years ago because it just became too difficult, and I only do bags now.
Yeah, I was going to say the other option here is not even delegating it. It's like back to elimination. What if you just didn't wrap the gifts and you just use gift bags? And
Yeah,
it's like that was her solution. We've wrapped, often it'll be like the day before or 2 days before or whatever. And all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, we've got all these things to wrap. And I'll be sitting there with all this stuff out on the bed. And I'm like, trying to keep track of everything. And I'm trying to vary this wrapping paper with this gift and all this
right.
stuff. And it's like, it's insanity. And Megan one day was just like, we're never doing this again.
Yeah. She's good about that. She's good
Yeah.
about, laying down the hammer and saying it stops here. The
Right.
madness stops here. I think the other thing that can often, frankly, be overlooked is when we think about childcare, it feels like we've got to do all this stuff and still have the kids 24/7. And this may be a really good time for you to call a neighbor down the street and say, "Hey, do you mind if I send, Naomi over for a little bit, or whoever your kid is, while I go knock out some work or wrap the gifts or do whatever I need to do, or send the kids to grandma's." Delegate the childcare for a period of time.
Well, this is really meaningful this time of year because on top of our calendars already being completely stuffed, the kids are out of school for like 2 weeks.
Yeah. Oh
And
gosh.
what the heck do you do with kids that are out of school for 2 weeks while you're like trying to operate your life? It's
Yes.
like, oh, here's, you're drowning. Let me hand you a piano.
Right, but you don't have to do it all, and so I
Yeah.
think that's the thing, and it doesn't have to be expensive. I think sometimes people think, "Oh gosh, I have to hire a babysitter, and I'm already doing that multiple times." No, you could just send the kid, down the street to a neighbor that you trust, or and you could even offer that in exchange at a different date for them, so they have the ability
Hmm.
to get some stuff done. You can kinda trade off.
Yeah. Trades are great.
Yeah, a relative or whomever may be close by. But there's ways for you to do this. I know that we have our local community center, and at this time of the year, they do like a little kind of camp where you can go drop the kids off, for free. Actually, it's crazy that they do that. But my neighbors rave about it, and it enables them when the kids are out for these long periods of time to still have a life and get the things done that they need to. So that's a great option. So there's a lot of creative ways to think about delegation at home. When you think about cleaning, is this a time when you want to bring in an outside cleaner to clean, or employ your children to clean, whatever it takes to kind of, or the laundry or the things that may feel like you just can't keep on top of this time of year? Is there a way to think about that where you could delegate it, that it doesn't have to be you doing it?
Well, and there are so many more services like that available than ever before. And, sometimes we don't know what they are. Sometimes all it takes is a search, online to find it. But like, if there's something that you don't like to do, there's probably somebody willing to take some money from you to do it for you.
Yeah,
And
and
like,
especially this time of year, everybody is looking to get a few more, bucks to be able to provide a great, holiday for their family, and I think if you have the means, this is such a beautiful time to employ somebody to help you with wrapping gifts, cleaning the house, prepping food, grocery shopping, whether that's Instacart. I mean, I will absolutely be doing Instacart and tipping really well this time of year because I wanna bless those people. I mean, they're doing
yeah.
me a massive service, and I want to really go above and beyond to help them. It's such a gift in both contexts. So if you have the means, do that if you can, because I think it's really impactful.
What about work? Like, it's insane at home. It's insane at work. So what do we do in a work context?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of ways to lighten the load, specifically through delegation at work. And this is what most of us think of. But, maybe there's some really time consuming task that does have to be done by the end of the year or before Christmas or whatever. And you need to get that accomplished. But could you just hire a contractor? Somebody for a set fee or an hourly rate. We use Upwork a lot here at Full Focus. We employ various people at various different times for lots of different projects to just knock out a specific thing for us.
Hmm.
Um, and that's really helpful. You could also ask a colleague to take over a project temporarily, or, for part of it so that you can keep the ball rolling and moving, but it doesn't necessarily have to be you doing that one part of the project.
Talk to me about uh, micromanagement. So, like, if you're a leader, I think one of the tricks is recognizing how independent a teammate can be
Right.
and empowering them to do the work. But sometimes we hold on to too much stuff. What about that?
Well, I think there's kind of two sides to this. On one side, it's us as a leader holding on too tightly to something. It's like we don't quite trust somebody else to do it. We have this, like, I don't know what you call it, hero complex, where it's like, I'm the only one, that can do the
Yeah.
thing. And then the other side is that we may have a team member who feels a little bit more insecure. Maybe we in our own leadership have created kind of a habit of them feeling like they can't move without our input. And so they're actually like asking us in a weird way to micromanage them. So there's kind of two sides to this. And I think really it the solution is the same for both, which is we want to really empower that person, which ultimately empowers us. So if you're the leader in this context, this is going to help you actually empower yourself to go do the things you want, free you up to do the things that matter most to you. And so essentially it takes clarity. It's like, hey, here's what I'm trying to actually accomplish, and I'm realizing I'm too engaged in this project with you or into
Yeah.
this behavior with you. And so what I actually want to do is I want to empower you to feel totally confident to go do this thing yourself, because I know you have the ability to do it and do it with excellence. And so here's what that's going to look like over the next month. And I just did this with a team member of mine, where I realized I was way too much in the weeds with what this team member was doing on a daily basis. And it was like not a good use of my time. And I was actually hindering their progress and their growth.
Hmm.
And so all I did was I communicated that. I said, "Hey, I caught myself. This behavior that I've been engaging in is actually not helping you." And so what I want to do moving forward is actually center our conversations or our time about this thing rather than that. Because I think you've got that and I actually trust you to do that. So, obviously if you have questions, let me know, but you've got it. And we're actually gonna focus on this part rather than the other thing, which doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
It's not a good use of either of our times, and it's hindering your growth. So that would be how I would handle that, because I think that micromanaging can feel really tempting, especially when we're on the hook as a leader for the results of that thing.
Sure. It's just that, back to the gratitude conversation last week, we are dependent on other people. And if they feel empowered to do their work, then we actually get the benefit from it, as opposed to trying to hold on to it all ourselves in this kind of scarcity mindset that is full of anxiety and fear that things are going to go wrong. We should be empowering people to do well so we can just trust them to do their work.
And if they're coming to you kind of asking indirectly for that micromanagement and you kind of sense that lack of confidence, one of the ways that we as leaders can really coach our teams is asking them, like, what part of this do you feel insecure about, or
Yeah.
least confident in? And that will be really revealing to you. And they'll be able to share with you in their own words the part that feels the most insecure to them. And so then it's like, okay, great. How can I help that person develop that skill or the skills needed to deliver that thing that they feel insecure about? And shift your energy rather than to just doing it or to being so micromanaging on that thing, like where they send it to you for review constantly. Forget that and shift your focus on helping that person develop the skill needed to create the thing in the first place.
Right. What I think all this comes down to, whether it's delegating at home or delegating in the office, is just knowing what are the things that only you can actually do,
Yeah.
and then empowering others, or just pleading with others, asking others to step in and give you the support on the rest.
Yes, 100%. And really and doing our best in that process to be as grateful, kind of going back to last week's episode, being as grateful as possible in that process. So showing a
Yeah.
lot of gratitude when the person does say yes, or when we have delegated that out or outsourced that item, showing a lot of gratitude because it is meaningful, and you couldn't have accomplished it without that person, or not, certainly not in the same way that you could with them.
So we've talked about two strategies really so far. Actually, three. Like, the first would be identifying your non-negotiables, like the stuff
Yeah.
you absolutely have to do. The second would be to eliminate the stuff that you don't absolutely have to do. The third would be to delegate the things that can be delegated. The fourth what we're getting ready to talk to you about now. Procrastinate the stuff that can wait. And this is actually, I think, one of my favorite topics because the most powerful word in the English language is not even an English word, mañana,
Mm,
tomorrow. There's
tomorrow.
like, it's a beautiful thing tomorrow. I love you tomorrow, like Annie sings. Like tomorrow has so much potential and so much possibility. And one of the greatest things about tomorrow is it doesn't impinge on today.
Gosh,
And I think you can put off things in a bad way, but the truth is, strategically working, strategically contributing in any context is learning how to procrastinate in a good way.
yes.
And if you don't figure this out, you're always going to be swamped because if you pull all of the future into the moment, you will always be buried. But
Yeah,
if you push the future out into the future, you will not be buried. You will have, enough trouble for today. Like Jesus tells us that there's enough evil for every day, basically. You don't have to worry about it. And
right.
if you do, you're just heaping up trouble for yourself.
Yeah. Well, and I think that, we think usually procrastination is like this dirty word. It's like this bad thing that, oh, don't be a procrastinator. And somehow it makes us less than if we are, procrastinating something, or we're just like, oh, like you're a procrastinator. Like you don't get it all done.
It's a dirty P that you wear like a big red letter on your
Yes.
chest, like Hester Prynne, but it's like for procrastination.
Yeah. And the truth is, you could actually be a really strategic procrastinator and be much better off for it. And so I think there's ways to do this. Like sometimes we need to do less,
Hmm.
but sometimes that means just doing some of it later. So it doesn't mean that we're not doing it at all. It's just we're being strategic and saying, this stuff can hold off and we don't need to worry about it. It doesn't need to take up my brain space or my calendar space right now.
Right.
So, a couple practical ways that you guys can think about this. Recurring meetings. I talked about this a little bit earlier, but like, are there things like that that you actually need to just not be doing this time of year? They're not that productive. They're not that critical. It's not that necessary for December. And so, could you just kind of push that off until next year? Or even social gatherings. And I think this is really great. Like, book club is a great example of this. Do we need to be doing book club? Like, do we really need to be trying to put that pressure on ourselves in December to read another book, to have another social gathering? We almost always in my book club, um, we don't do it in December. We push it
You
off.
just punt it.
We just push it off because it's
Yeah.
just like it's not actually helpful. It's counterproductive, if anything. So, yeah, thinking about what is on your calendar that you want to just punt until next year.
What about as we think about work projects? Like there's this tendency to try to get everything done by the end of the year. Some of those are very arbitrary.
Yeah.
It's like they're not actually essential. It seems to me that part of the work of discernment is deciding, like, in all these arbitrary deadlines that we've set for ourselves, which actually need to be done now and which could be tackled later.
Yeah. We don't, again, kind of going back to this idea of like, you get to create a playbook or strategy that you can win. We don't have to put this pressure on ourselves, or maybe it's even just thinking about like, what part of this does have to happen now?
Hmm.
What part of it can I push off? Because it's not always the case that everything has to happen immediately. Sometimes it's just that one piece of it has to happen now. But the whole thing, like who created that deadline?
Well, often it's us, right? Like an employer comes and says, like, hey, we need to do X. Like, how fast can you do it? Or when can you have it done by? And we get really ambitious and we think, oh, I can have that done in 3 weeks, or I can have that
Yeah.
done in 2 weeks, or I can have that to you by Thursday. I mean, we're imposing the deadline on ourselves very often. And we could go back, even if we've committed to it, we
Yeah.
could go back and renegotiate it,
Yeah.
like, hey, I've just looked over everything. And the truth is, I don't think I can reasonably get this done on this timeline, and just renegotiate it.
Having the qualifier too of not only can I reasonably get this done in the timeline, but with excellence.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like if you're in a position where, let's say you committed to something and you committed to your boss that you were going to have that thing done. And so you're on the hook for it. I would say that if any of my team members and came to me and said, "Hey, I would love to get this done in the timeline. However, I don't feel like with everything else going on at this time of year, I'm gonna be able to do that with excellence. So I'd like to suggest that we push this to January or whatever the future date is." I'm usually going to go, unless it's like, something that is really writing on that, I'm going to go, yeah, definitely. I want you
Yeah.
to do excellent work. I want an
Right.
excellent product at the end of whatever the project is that you're working on. And so if giving you 2 more weeks or another month is going to be able to produce that result, then like by all means take that time.
What ends up happening is we, in order to not turn in something substandard, we work nights, we extend ourselves as far as we conceivably can in order to get it done within this tight time frame, and we suffer as a result, physically, our energy level, just like everything. Like we're basically putting a credit card in on the future for like our own performance, and
Right.
we're suffering as a result because we take enough pride in our work that we're not going to turn in something bad, but the cost is just too high. And so, like, if you can do the math in your own head on what that's going to cost you, it really does create an incentive to go renegotiate those things.
Yes, absolutely. I think one area that we probably overlook and we feel like has to be kind of this all or nothing, like we have to have that mentality, especially at this time of year, is our self care.
Hmm.
And so it feels like some of these other areas of our life are easier to apply these principles to. But I think that when we think about our self care, it doesn't have to be like either we're shooting for the moon or we're not doing it at all. Like you're either, exercising every single day, eating according to your, nutrition plan that you set and, getting 8 hours of sleep and having this elaborate morning routine, or you're not doing any of those things. And the truth is, you could probably just pare this back
Yeah.
and make it really manageable for yourself, um, which I think is really important, and procrastinate all that other stuff, all the like great, shooting for the moon stuff until another time, another season that feels more manageable. So when you think
Yeah.
about your self care, like how can you simplify it? Again, going back to the non negotiables, what are the non negotiables for you? Maybe that's just getting out and moving your body in some context each day.
Right. A simple walk, for
That can
instance.
look like, so many different ways.
Yeah.
It could be doing, some stretching. I mean, it doesn't have to be like shooting for the moon and going, to the gym for an hour every single day. There's other ways to do that to simplify. And again, if you kind of begin with the end in mind, what are the non-negotiables? What's the thing, the outcome I'm trying to accomplish? You can reverse engineer it, for this month specifically.
What ultimately we're saying is you need margin.
Yes.
And you can create more margin for yourself than you think if you're clear on those non-negotiables, if you eliminate the stuff that doesn't have to be done, if you can delegate the stuff that doesn't essentially require you, and if you procrastinate the stuff that can wait.
Yes.
It's like almost a math problem, and it's really as simple as 1, 2, 3.
Yeah. So, what is the tool to help us accomplish this? Because I think when we think about this, it's great, but like, how can we actually put this into practice, today? And as we think about creating December to be more about peace and creating more margin rather than running around like a chicken with our head cut off.
Well, at the beginning, I mentioned creating a to-do list, essentially a list of all the stuff that you think you have to do. I think now you want to create a to don't list, a not to do list.
Yes.
And I mean, it's as simple as just opening up a page in the back of your planner, like a notes page. It could actually just be any page in the planner that is open that day. Just write down the stuff that you're not going to do.
Yep.
And like, it could be take that opening list that you started with and just like on next to each item on it, just write like on the margin right next to it, just write, no, I'm going to eliminate that. No, I'm going to delegate that. No, I'm going to procrastinate that. And just use that little rubric to go down the page and decide what you're going to do or not do. And, it's as simple as that. Honestly, there's going to be some conversations that have to happen afterwards. Like you are going to potentially have to renegotiate some of that time. You are going to have to ask those persons you're going to delegate to. You are going to have to maybe explain some of the things you're going to take off the to-do list. But like that's the path to
Mhm.
freedom. That's the path to margin.
Yes. Yes, I love that. Well, before we wrap up, Joel, I have a listener question. This comes from Leslie, who is in our Double Win coaching community. She's asking, how can I use ChatGPT and the Full Focus Planner to plan for the holidays?
I don't know if this will work perfectly for everyone, but I'm going to give you an idea. I started doing my weekly preview in ChatGPT as an experiment. And one of the things I did was I spent like just an ungodly amount of time trying to figure out how to export my calendar. And then I just decided like I couldn't figure it out. And so I stopped. And what I did instead was I opened up my calendar to the week and I opened up a chat and I basically narrated my week. And it took me like 3 minutes to do. It was
Mm,
very fast. I just said, here's what's on my schedule. Here's the kind of hours we're talking about for each of these commitments. Here are a few of the things that I want to do. Help me understand like how to pace this work and or how to schedule the work and so on. And it gave me surprisingly good answers.
hmm,
And I was then able, instead of having to like conjure up the perfect schedule, there's no such thing anyway, but
right.
to conjure the best way to do this, it was like I had a partner in helping me to like troubleshoot my schedule. And it's a really cool trick. Now, again, everybody's experience in ChatGPT is a little different. Mileage may vary, but I found that to be really an interesting and helpful way to just like think through what am I committed to in the coming week. And I think you could probably sit down and figure that out for a month if you just spent 30 minutes in ChatGPT.
I love the idea of dictating it rather than trying to export it because there's probably context you're giving to chat
Exactly.
in the dictation that
Yep.
you wouldn't get in, an export or a screenshot or something like that. You're going to be able to provide context into each of those calendar items, which will be critical in filtering what
Yeah.
continue.
And that's key. I did dictate it. Like, so I didn't even have to type it. I literally just had my calendar open on my screen in front of me. I had the chat window open. I just talked about what I was looking at. I gave it the context, and then it was able to basically process that in a way that was useful.
That's so good. Just another quick tip on this. One of our favorite tools for dictating in any context, not just in ChatGPT, but an email or a text or whatever, is an application called Typeless. And
Mhm.
highly encourage you guys. It's only for desktop. So there's other ones you can get for your phone.
Whisper Flow is one that works for your phone too.
Yes. And they save you so much time. And it's crazy. It formats it just perfectly. And it's pretty amazing.
Well, it basically uses intelligence on the back end to decipher what you meant to say and cleans it up.
Yeah.
So it's not just like an audio note. It actually straightens it out so it like reads like it was supposed to.
Yes, which is amazing. So definitely try those tools out. All right, Joel, what are our kind of like final thoughts to wrap it all together?
The first is that we need to be generous in this season.
Mhm.
And one of the people that we need to be generous to is ourselves.
Yeah.
And so we need to give ourselves the gift of more time. We need to give ourselves the gift of margin. And the only way to do that is to think about the things that are eating up our time, to think about what are the commitments and obligations, whether stated or unstated, that we have on our plates, and how do we renegotiate those things with other people, with ourselves. And as we're thinking about how to renegotiate that with other people and ourselves, we have to remember the second point, and that is that we have agency.
Yep.
We can choose to do this slower. We can choose to do this simpler. We can choose to do this in a more strategic way. And it's like, there's no reason you have to take the thing that was given to you and just go with it.
Right.
Like you said, you can change the playbook. You can make a game that you can win. And so I think that's what I would emphasize at the end.
I think that's great. And I think we can't hear that message enough. I think that the more that we can communicate that and give people that permission slip, the better, because I think it's very rare that we're doing that to ourselves or that we stop long enough to realize, wait, who created this whole crazy thing in the first place? Oh, wait, it
was me.
Which means I also have the ability to make it stop. I can change the course of how this looks for the rest of the year, which is really encouraging and empowering. And it's not that hard.
Here's another name check that reveals how old I am. Susan Powder, Stop the Madness.
Thanks for joining us on Focus on This.
This is the most productive podcast on the internet. So please share it with your friends and be sure to subscribe wherever you listen or at focusonthispodcast.com.
And we're going to be here next week talking about your year-end goal check. So what are the things that you need to be thinking about now before the new year comes?
Until then, stay focused.